This is Heather's story. Welcome back to the 6 Feet Above podcast, episode 26. I am joined by a friend named Heather Repp, and you might have heard of her because Wellness for Humanity has blown up in Atlanta, in Dallas, in New York, and on the West Coast. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to interview you, and I'm pivoting a little bit this year. So the first two seasons were very mental health based, and not to say that this episode is not mental health based, because everything really is. But my draw to interviewing you is that you made a huge impact on society, at least here locally in Atlanta, with your COVID testing in 2020. And I'm excited to hear how you got there and how you made a year that was so traumatic for so many people a success for you and your family. And I know it wasn't easy, and I know that there's a big backstory to it, but instead of, this person went through depression or anxiety or whatever, I wanted to bring you on because you're such an inspirational force in the community, and people need to hear about these stories. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes. Are you nervous?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's your first podcast.
Yeah. Well, and you're, honestly, I love that we've met a few years ago and run into each other in different circles. And it's funny, you calling me an inspiration because I look at you that way and just the way you've overcome everything. So it's truly an honor to be here today and talking to you.
I appreciate that. I think the last time we saw each other in public, we were having a Christmas cocktail.
Yes.
What is it?
The Blinded Elf.
The blinded pig, right? Or the blind pig?
I think they call it Elf during Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Season, but I can't remember.
That's so true.
It is such a speakeasy, though. I love that place.
I love that place. I'm like, don't tell anyone about it, because got to keep it secret.
Yeah. Well,
so welcome. Give us a little bit of a background about Wellness for Humanity and your role there.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So wellness was started out of passion. The big goal in April was to empower humanity to thrive again.
Okay.
And so I got involved around August of 2020. I had already been a physician assistant for many years, practicing anesthesia. And so I had dealt with COVID firsthand when it came on. I saw really the tragedy side of it. I was working in a COVID ICU and intubating patients who were not doing well. And this is back in March and April when we really knew nothing about the disease.
Right.
And it was frightening, to say the least. So I have two little kids, and I remember coming home in the morning because I had to work night shift because nobody wanted to watch my kids during the day. Aww. And just changing in the garage, scrubbing my body off, and thinking to myself, there has to be something better.
Right.
Instead of kind of holding my breath, praying for this to be over, how can I help stop the bleed?
Right.
And so this company, Wellness, had kind of started doing things like antibody testing, and this is really before we knew how to even test people, right?
Right. So we're talking about a year ago, like literally.
Yep.
I mean, we're recording, but you're actually going to be, your release date, I think, is going to be March 23rd, which is almost exactly a year from our shutdown.
Yeah.
So we're talking, and it's hard to I feel like last March was way more than a year ago. Does it feel like that way? I feel like
it definitely feels like the longest year.
Yeah, it feels like it was several years ago, but also yesterday at the same time.
Yeah.
So this is back at a time when we really didn't know anything. And everyone was so up in the air and so scared. And people are still, scared, rightfully so. But at least we know more now. So put us back in that place for you.
Yeah, it was crazy because I just remember watching the news, and it was when every single day you would just turn the TV on and you would watch the New York numbers and Italy, and you would get updates from China, and they were talking about a nationwide shutdown, and our hospital had stopped outpatient surgery, so they had really not much to do with the staff. They were like, well, we don't really have a job for you because we can't safely perform outpatient procedures, not to mention who wanted to go get something elective at the time, right? So they took volunteers to either work during the day to do emergent procedures, or some of us who were like younger and healthier, we opted to go in and do this COVID ICU night shift or during the day.
Okay.
Like I said, I opted for the night shift because I just didn't have any help for my two littles.
Yeah.
But the hard part was sourcing any kind of mask. I was reusing the same mask for 2-3 weeks. I had to order goggles on Amazon, and I'm competing against like the entire world trying to get some goggles, but I really needed them.
Hospitals aren't doing it for you because they just don't have the capacity, or what? I've actually never asked. I haven't had anyone ask a professional, but like, what was the whole thing? Like, were the hospitals not prepared, or how were you able to get your own materials and they weren't?
Yeah, I would love to answer that question. I think they were already in a shortage supply, is my understanding, prior to the pandemic.
Okay.
And then they never caught up.
Got it.
And so when the pandemic hit, I think some people were maybe taking them from the hospital because they were so scared.
Got it.
And then we were just going through them so quickly. And then all of a sudden their new regulations came out. It was kind of like... when you would get a staff letter, it was like, today, this is the new update. And it would be like something different every single day. Like, reuse the same mask. Don't reuse the same mask. We don't have any masks, so you better bring your own.
Oh, gosh.
So I actually used it was like a painter's mask.
Uh-huh. Yes, I saw that.
It was kind of crazy. N95s, which some people might not know this, but you're actually supposed to be fit tested for them.
Oh.
So prior to the pandemic, we only used N95s for airborne diseases, so like tuberculosis. So anytime I would have a TB patient, we would have to wear this mask. So I got fitted for one, like when I first started working, and they were like, these don't fit you.
Oh, jeez.
I like failed the fit test, which actually is fairly common. I guess it's like my facial structure. But guys are supposed to shave their beards because you technically can't have any kind of opening.
Oh.
And so this is when we think like the whole thing's airborne, you know, walk 18 feet away from everyone, like it lives everywhere. And I'm like, great, I have to go in and wear a mask that doesn't fit. Amazing.
Yeah. And like terrified that this is going to happen to me, and you're taking care of people that are literally on their deathbeds.
Yeah, they were. The best part was honestly like how many of my neighbors and friends reached out and said, you know what, I've got a mask in my basement that I painted with. I would love to drop it off. Or I would randomly get like a Starbucks gift card. And honestly, just like for every bad person, like when I would go to Costco and see somebody wearing an N95 when they didn't need to, there was like a good person that was honestly, you know, sharing what they had. And that was amazing.
Yeah.
So I worked that. Luckily, it wasn't long before elective surgery picked back up. And then in June, I stopped doing anesthesia altogether and kind of had the rug pulled under me. And that was the best thing that could have happened.
In hindsight.
In
right?
hindsight, yeah.
So previous to working overnights and, you know, helping out with COVID, you were doing what?
So yeah, on the side, I had been starting a healthcare software.
Okay.
It was going to be a full startup. We were a skeleton crew. I had one other co-founder and a developer and then an investor, and we were really working to change medicine in a new way.
Okay.
So this is prior to the pandemic, and it was super exciting. And we were really taking off. And in February, had won a Healthcare Innovation Award here in Atlanta. And so I decided to put in kind of like a 90-day notice pre-pandemic in February of 2020.
Right.
That went into effect June 1st. So when June 1st came around and they didn't really need me in the ICU and outpatient surgery was still really slow, I was left without any safety net, 2 kids and a mortgage.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Kind of crazy.
So what was the next step after that?
Just keeping my heart open. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is when you're left in that situation, being open to whatever falls in your lap and knowing in your heart that you will make it work because you have no other choice.
Yeah.
So rather than sitting at home and, you know, obviously like unemployment is super important for people, but rather than just using that until it picked back up, I said, okay, like, what are my skills and how can I use these? And it was a blessing, but a friend of mine, which is why I think networking is so important, reached out to me and said, hey, I know you're kind of between things. Do you want to help with, you know, this wellness center I'm about to start? And I was like, I don't know what it is, but I'm all in.
Right.
And I want equity and I want to make it work. And I don't want just a position, because that's what I was trying to get out of the first time.